interest rates go up, housing prices are supposed to come down. At least that's what's supposed to happen. But to the surprise of pretty much everyone, that isn't what's happening. In fact, right now, the real estate market is undergoing a rare reverse crash, where housing prices go up, even though they seem like they shouldn't. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you exactly what a reverse real estate crash is, why it's happening, and what might turn the tides in the opposite direction. But before I get into it, my name's Nolan Matthias, and I've spent the last 20 years in the real estate industry. I know, right? I don't think I look that old either. And if you're new here, this channel is all about thriving financially and giving back. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and hit the like button so more people like you can see this video. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's discuss the rare reverse real estate crash and what's happening in the real estate market in North America right now. Because this isn't what's supposed to be happening. Those interest rates went up and the housing prices were supposed to come down. That's just the way it's supposed to work. But there are a whole bunch of other factors that have led the opposite to happen. And this is proof that you can't rely on one economic metric to forecast the future of a market. It just simply doesn't work that way. Because while interest rates did go up, there's a whole bunch of other factors that are acting on the real estate market at this moment. In fact, there are at least 5 that are obviously putting upward pressure on real estate prices. The first is low inventory. In other words, there aren't as many houses for sale as there is demand for them. And the reason for this is twofold. The first is what's known as the lock-in effect. So because housing prices have continued to go up, people have gained equity, and that tends to create a scenario where people want to hold onto their properties for longer. Their net worths are going up on paper, and it doesn't make sense to sell and buy another property if the property that you would be looking to replace it has also gone up in value. And for most people, when they go to sell a property, they tend to look to move up, not to move sideways or down, although that does happen in older age demographics. But for the most part, people who own property right now are seeing that they've got increased equity, and they're also seeing that the houses that they aspire to are becoming exceedingly more expensive. And even though everything is relative, those higher nominal prices are making them rethink moving up into higher value properties. Now, on top of that, there's a significant amount of people who got mortgages in the last 2 or 3 years that have incredibly low interest rates. And because their interest rates are so low, they don't want to give up the mortgages that they have on their existing properties. And this is obviously because there's a fear that if they were to buy a new property, they would have to pay a significantly higher interest rate. And every 1% increase in interest rates equals about 10% more in payments that you're going to have to make over the life of the mortgage. So for somebody who has a 3% interest rate and might be looking at a 7% interest rate instead, that equates to a 40% increase in the payments that they'll have to make over the life of that mortgage. And for most people, that's a no-brainer. They don't want to pay that much more, so they're not going to give up the mortgages that they have, leading to low inventory. Now, the second big issue is the construction lag that is happening because there are not enough homes to house all the people that want to buy them. And guess what? Builders aren't building enough to keep up with the supply needs. And there's a bunch of reasons for this. The first is obviously regulatory. It is getting harder and harder for builders to get approvals to build properties. And even though federal, state, and municipal governments recognize this as a problem, there's little being done to solve it. And that leads to higher costs for building, especially when it comes to holding properties for significant amounts of time to jump through those regulatory hoops. And on top of that, the higher interest rates are making those holding costs and the building costs, the cost to borrow the money, significantly more expensive, which is reducing profit margins and making it so builders just don't have the incentives that they once had to build new houses. And with less construction comes less inventory, and with less inventory, obviously, higher prices. Then combine that with the fact that the cost of materials, labor, and pretty much everything else has gone up, and you can see why there's less building happening than there needs to be. Now, the third thing that is causing housing prices to go up is changing demographics, both from the perspective of age demographics, so millennials getting into the housing market for the first time, as well as immigration demographics. For example, immigration into North America is at the highest levels it has ever been, and that includes illegal border crossings into the US, which are at a level that has never before been seen. And as people immigrate to North America, that obviously puts pressure on the real estate market, especially again as we fail to have enough supply in order to house them. And that leads to higher rents, it also leads to higher housing prices, and just a general trickle-down effect into the economy, causing this reverse real estate crash. Now, the fourth thing that's putting upward pressure on the real estate market is relaxed lending practices. Both in the US and Canada, we're seeing rules with respect to borrowing and rules with respect to whether or not you have to make your payments or payment assistance programs coming more and more into play. And with respect to the relaxed underwriting processes, that is making it easier for young people to buy properties. And as a result, that is again putting upward pressure on the real estate market. And the more relaxed these policies get, the more upward pressure it is going to put on real estate prices. That combined with payment assistance programs, creates the fifth issue for the real estate market in North America right now, and that is the fact that there's a lack of foreclosures. Because typically when you see interest rates rise, what you would expect is people are no longer going to be able to make their payments. And this happens both because of higher borrowing costs, but also because when interest rates are rising, companies tend to start doing layoffs, which means unemployment rates go up, and when people are unemployed, they obviously can't make their mortgage payments. But that is yet to happen as a result of higher interest rates. Yes, there are companies that have done layoffs, especially in the tech sector, but the widespread layoffs that are expected when you see interest rate increases to the extent that have happened in the last couple of years just simply hasn't materialized. And in addition to that, because housing prices have increased, pretty much everybody now has equity in their properties, which makes people less likely to give up on making their payments because they don't want to lose the equity that they have. And again, all of that combines to create a low inventory problem as there's less listings and less supply for people to buy. So while higher interest rates are having an effect throughout the rest of the economy, they're actually having the opposite of the intended effect on the real estate market. So the question then becomes, when will this all change? Well, for the most part, people need to have a roof over their head. They need a place to live. So while some markets like California and Ontario may see people moved to greener pastures within their countries, and this could put downward pressure on prices, it's also going to put upward pressure on other areas. So the inventory problem seems to be something that may not go away anytime soon. Now, that being said, if unemployment starts to become a serious problem, that could lead to foreclosures, and that could eventually lead to more inventory. But you can bet that that's also going to put upward pressure on the rental market because as people sell their properties, they're still going to need a place to live. So barring an unforeseen complete financial meltdown, there's a really good chance that high housing prices are here to stay until our construction practices can catch up with the amount of demand that we have for housing. Now, that being said, I started this video by saying that you can't take one economic metric and forecast a market based on that one thing. And this is true for this situation as well. And more than likely, the thing that will lead to lower housing prices in the future is something completely unforeseen that nobody can predict. It will be something like the tech bubble bursting, something like the financial crisis in 2008, or something worse that was just completely unexpected. But if that inevitable event doesn't happen, you might expect that inflation and higher wages are probably going to catch up to property values before they start to come down. But the truth is, nobody can tell. Forecasts are forecasts for a reason. It's because it's the best guess based on the information that we have right now. The key thing is if you're looking to get into the market or if you already own a property, is make sure that the property that you own or the one that you're buying is one that you can afford for the long term. Have a 10, 15, 20-year plan on how you will be able to not only make the payments and continue to make the payments on that property, but pay the mortgage off as fast as you can. Because once you eliminate the mortgage on your property, nobody can take it away from you. And in addition to that, if you can get rid of that mortgage, you'll be ahead of 99% of people. And if you want to know more about how to get ahead of 99% of people, make sure you check out this video right here.